Greetings, Starfighters, and welcome to Shameless, Cashgrab Second Opinions. I'm Morgan,
And I'm Robin,
formerly of Geek of All Trades.
and we're here to add our 2 cents worth on the films Arkle rated as best of set for the first 6 seasons.
Number 1, Slipstream.
Slipstream is just a good movie. It's not perfect, but, many of the complaints I had about it I put in the review. Some of the sweeping panoramic shots, beautiful as they are, go a little long. Some of the minor characters could have actually stood to be fleshed out a little more. But overall, it is just a damn good movie with a solid cast. Mark Hamill's great, as he usually is. Ben Kingsley manages to make an impression despite his very brief screen time. Late, great Bill Paxton was on point, there was some problematic moments in it, sure. There was one scene in particular I talked about in the review that made me outright cringe, but, even with that, it is just... I imagine that a lot of the people who bought this set, or at least I'd like to think, that they would agree with me that Slipstream is absolutely, hands down, the best movie in the Strange Things set.
So, the premise of Shameless Cash Grab Second Opinions is that we watch the film on each of the 6 sets that Arkle rated number 1, and then we say what we thought of it, whether we agree with him or disagree with him. And we start with the Stranger Things set, where we knew we were going to disagree with him right from the outset because we both really like Krull. And Arkle really doesn't like Krull. So there was it was a really, really high bar for any film on that set to come anywhere near something that's one of our favorite films.
And Slipstream didn't really come close at all.
Yeah. So this one, there's a definite disagreement.
Yeah. I think it's fair to call this one the strongest disagreement.
Yes.
Overall.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it is.
It begins with some promise. The opening sequence seems like it's got some potential, which never really gets realized.
That there are things that we do agree with Arkle on.
Oh, yeah.
That the panoramas, the long shots for the airplanes were beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
They actually had me looking up where they were shot, parts of Ireland and Turkey, but they went on way too long. Anytime you're going, get on with it.
And there were too many of them, and they were all too long.
And they really didn't add anything, because one of our problems is, the whole thing is about the slipstream, these winds that have fundamentally changed all of civilization. And where were they? You see people flying, but they don't seem to be having any problems navigating, like there's high winds or anything.
Well, I'm pretty sure that all of the cities are supposed to be within the slipstream. But the problem is that, to me, these panoramas felt like their effort to do show, don't tell. That's not how show, don't tell works. Show, don't tell means you have these things organically make sense in the world. A random shot of people flying mopeds in the air, that doesn't show what the slipstream is or what it means. It just shows mopeds in the air. Beautiful mopeds in the air.
Yeah, the planes were cool.
Yes.
The planes were definitely cool.
Mark Hamill's plane was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. One of our notes early on is, how did the guy who directed Tron make this turkey? Or, the producers of Star Wars and Dark Crystal, which were good films.
Yeah, I think Tron is a masterpiece. This is a disaster piece,
The several of the minor characters were criminally underused.
Yeah, played by some great actors.
Yeah, Robbie Coltrane wasn't a name yet.
Yeah,
but Ben Kingsley and F. Murray Abraham were. And they're like, Ben Kingsley was blink and you miss him.
Yeah. And quick note, I actually thought that the actor playing Byron, the android who's at the center of the story, was F. Murray Abraham until I saw F. Murray Abraham the similarity wasn't great, but his acting was so good, and I'll get into the positives later, because this movie wasn't a complete dumpster fire. There were good things in this movie, and I want to save the best for last, but that's how minor these major names were, except for Mark Hamill.
Yeah. Who appeared to be having fun.
He got his first villain role. He was clearly... you can see the first glimmers of the trickster and the Joker. I mean, the character is not a trickster or Joker character. He's a Javert type cop.
He's definitely a Javert.
Yeah, but there's just the slightest hints of the mania that Mark Hamill would embrace in his villainy later. And, well, again, save that the rest of that commentary for later.
So, kind of working off our notes here, we're kind of skipping around in our notes because we've already said some of the things that are farther down.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we agreed with Arkle on is that the whole thing with that really cringy kissing the girl while she's tied up, and then she decides to turn around and be with him for reasons that were scratch not adequately explained. They weren't explained at all. It's like,
I want to give the actress...
I like you now. And
I want to give the actress props for selling that as best as she could, given the horrible way that the character's arc was written.
Yeah, I want to see a movie about her.
Oh, that actually talks about the Slipstream. But,
or just a completely separate movie about her doing something else. Just she's a cool character.
But the thing is that really that's in character for Bill Paxton's character. I can't remember the character's name, and I can't be bothered to look it up again, because that was a trash character, and none of this appears to be on Bill Paxton. I mean, he was famous for his role in Aliens, and he's a character actor who does really good characters who can seem likable but turn out to be jerks later. This was supposed to be the reverse, and Bill Paxton cannot save this sexist dumpster fire of a character because they did not understand how to do whatever it is they were trying to do with him. I figured they were trying to do a Han Solo thing with him and failed spectacularly. He's he's groping the waitresses at the beginning, and he's basically treating everyone like trash, but particularly women, and he's just unlikable the whole film until almost the end, when they get to where Byron is headed. And he starts to really bond with Byron, finally. And then the scene with Belitsky happens. Oops.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only thing at the end. Then they had to fridge Ariel.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't familiar, the trope is women in refrigerators, where a character, almost always a woman, is basically, they don't have a lot of character development on their own. They're there so that they can be killed, usually in a horrible, brutal manner, to add angst or character development to a male character. There was a really, really unfortunate instance of that in the recent Wheel of Time series.
But I do want to say that Ariel did get character development.
That's true.
It wasn't necessarily positive character development, but at least she was developed as a character before she was killed off.
That's true.
But
unlike the character in the other show that we probably shouldn't spend any time talking about, because this isn't a Wheel of Time review.
No, it is not. And I think, considering that's, it's just, there's so much wrong with this film. But I do want to get to what's right about it.
And it could have been...
Oh, yes.
It could have been a really good movie.
Oh, yes. It could have been... I mean, because Mark Hamill is a great character who is revealed as a villain. He's the antagonist, but you can see how he could be the good guy until the story unfolds, and that's done well. Mark Hamill's situation is really handled very nicely, and Byron... Oh my God,
Byron is the best thing about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, he is well written. He's the best written character in the story. He's well acted. I mean, there's a certain amount of deliberately playing up the mysterious nature of the character, which is central to the plot. He's accused of murder, and he never denies it, but he never quite accepts the title of murder. He definitely killed the guy. He never
He
denies
never
that.
denies
But
that he killed the
there's
guy.
a strong. I think he says at one point that it's what the person wanted, but he never explicitly says, if I remember correctly, that that the person he killed specifically asked him to. But given that he was an android,
It's really strongly implied.
yeah, there's a certain amount of implication that he was 3 laws compliant before his owner's death, and yes, that's as disturbing as it sounds. And no, the movie doesn't downplay that. It's just subtext most of the time. But yeah, I mean,
Just the fact that the reveal that he's an android is kind of a slow burn.
yeah, that was well handled too.
Early on, I'm going. So
how do you do that?
Is that an android? Well, when he's just standing there, not really doing much of anything, and he's in custody, but they don't have him in cuffs because they don't need him to be because he's going along willingly. There was just something about him that I was like,
oh, they shoot him with the crossbow bolt, and he doesn't seem to be hurt. He gets out of those handcuffs.
That was another thing. So there were several of these little things that were like increasingly going, that guy's a robot, isn't he? And okay, android robot. Let's not get into that one.
A synthetic life form. Because Byron, again, is easily the most interesting and sympathetic character in this movie.
Yeah.
Bilisky is a solid second, mind you, but and if they had written Bill Paxton's character well, the reveal of Byron as he, blossoms would have been just a delight. But, he's traveling with Bill Paxton's character.
Yeah. Who is, generally being an ass to everybody he meets.
Yeah. And they either should have made that character more sympathetic or made Byron the protagonist. And that isn't even getting into the problem of the movie is called Slipstream, and the Slipstream is a background element. There's a whole Mass Effect sub-thread of this conversation to be had later. Well, if we were ever to do that. But the Slipstream is never particularly important to the story.
No,
there's a great chase scene. The one good action scene. It's mentioned
in the beginning, in the opening text, where it explains, the Slipstream made this huge difference to all civilization on Earth, and then there's I think maybe 1 or 2 references to it later, and it's just I mean, you do have the wind cultists, but
but they're just there. They could be any cultists.
Yeah. Except
for there is the kite scene.
Well, the whole thing with the kite, they kind of have to be wind cultists for the kite thing to work.
But that's it. And, there's a chase scene, probably the best action scene in the whole movie. No, definitely the best action scene in the whole movie. It's a chase scene in the air. And, this is your time to have our pilot show, he doesn't know the Slipstream, I do. And that was their chance to do something with the Slipstream in this action sequence, which is how you do show, don't tell. And they didn't do it.
Yeah, because, I mean, you have the canyon where the wind cultists are, where there's the heavy winds.
Right.
But anytime the planes are in the air, it's a beautiful, clear day. It's the kind of day where you can hand the controls over to your friend who's not a pilot and say, you want to fly for a little while?
Yeah.
Because there's no hazards or anything. It's just beautiful, clear weather to show off the beautiful... I have a feeling it's a little bit like in Star Trek: The Motionless Picture.
Yes.
It's like we paid for all these effects, by God, we're going to use them. In this film, it was we paid for that helicopter to go up there and take all those panoramas, and we're going to use them all.
Look at Mark Hamill's cool plane. Look at Bilisky. Look at Mark Hamill's cool plane. Look at Mark Hamill's cool plane. Look at Bill Paxton's character. Look at Mark's cool plane. Look at Mark Hamill's cool plane. Look at Byron. Look at Mark Hamill's cool plane. That didn't happen. That's a Star Trek: The Motionless Picture joke, but it feels like that with these long panoramas.
Yeah. So
that is our opinion on Slipstream, I think. Yeah, should have been about Byron. Okay, it was about Byron, and the movie should have realized it was about Byron.
Yeah, they should have. It should have recognized that Byron was the main character.
So many times watching this movie, I could have been watching Krull. Why am I watching this instead of Krull?
Because Arkle asked us to, and we agreed.
Yeah.
And happy belated birthday, Arkle.
Yeah. Happy B-Day. But yeah, and that's the sad thing. It's not that it was just a bad movie. It was a bad movie that could have been a good movie. Maybe even a great movie.
So, I guess that's that.
That's season 1. Our opinion of Slipstream, it could have been Krull. Greetings, Starfighters! Robin here again to make a shameless book plug for Discami Publishing's Absolute Power, a modern superhero tabletop RPG supporting adventures across the entire power level spectrum. I'm happy to be the lead writer on this sequel to Silver Age Sentinels, with Mighty Mark McKinnon presenting the most robust version of Tristat's 4th edition to date. The Kickstarter for Absolute Power launches on February 8th. The link is in the show notes. Please look forward to it!